In today's video, I'll show you how to paint simple people. This kind of style is definitely a vibe of its own, but it's very easy, and by the end, you'll know a few new tricks and how to put it all together and make a colorful crowd scene like this. You'll be able to follow this with any brushes you want, but I'll list everything I used in the description. So the very first thing I need to do is create a sketch of my character. So I'm going to use my favorite sketching brush here. So for the body, I'm going to do a kind of bell shape like this. And I always do the feet just straight. I'll show you how to turn this into a walking pose later on. Now the feet here, I usually just do a little shoe like that. Now when I get to the arms, I do have to start thinking about what this guy's doing and where he's facing. So he's walking this way, and this is kind of a side profile. So I think I'll do one arm, kind of like that. And then maybe another arm out, and he's just going to be holding something, maybe a bag or a phone or something. And I like to do the hands really simple, just kind of wedge shapes like this. Now the head is also really simple. It's just going to be a kind of a circle shape like this, but I don't want it floating off the body. I want it to overlap a little bit. And for this style of characters, I like to make the head relatively kind of small. This is going to be a guy, so I'll just do a simple hairstyle like this. I'll add an ear. And I can always change this later when I'm actually painting it. So I like to do the face pretty quick and kind of off the cuff. And I like to keep it simple. I think I'll just do a simple kind of random bag like this. Now for the legs, I want to give him a walking pose. So to do that, I'm going to grab the selection tool, set to freehand, and I'm going to do a little bit of a collaging here. So I'm going to select the front leg. So because he's walking, I'm going to kind of rotate the front leg, make it so it's facing forward like that. Now the other leg, I'm going to tip it forward just a little bit as well, and then I'm going to cut it at the knee and then tip it back. And I do it this way because I really struggle to freehand legs and then get the knees right. Now if your character was running, you'd do basically the opposite of this and do the straight leg in the back and the bent leg in the front. Now once our sketch is done, we can move on and start coloring him in. And it's important to make the sketch layer above the layer that you're coloring. And I'm also going to set it to multiply. And you can lighten it up a little bit if that helps. Just make sure that you're actually doing your colors on layers below the sketch. Now if you're struggling to choose color palettes for your people or unique outfits, I recommend using a reference photo, so you can just look up photos online of crowds of people, pick one person that has an outfit you like, and kind of transfer over the color and styles to your character. Now I'm going to start by coloring in his shirt first, and for that I like to use the abstract round brush, and I'm going to use a warm beige tone like that, something light, and I'll just fill it in like this, not trying to be perfectly kind of in the lines, but make sure I cover everything. After that, I'm going to grab the eraser, set to the Fineliner Pen, and I'm just going to go along the edge and kind of correct it back so it matches the sketch. Now, I want this guy to have a kind of light blue stripe pattern on his shirt. So I'm going to make a new layer above my shirt. I'll choose my light blue color. And for this, I'm not going to use a watercolor brush. I'm going to use a default brush because I like the rough texture. So I'm going to go to charcoals. I think I'll use 2B compressed. And I'm just going to do, kind of on this separate layer, a bunch of these blue stripes. Now where this arm is kind of going against the grain here, it makes sense that the stripes aren't going horizontally. So I'm going to do some vertical stripes here for the arm. Now for this arm here, I'm going to do a similar thing. So first, I'm just going to use the eraser to kind of clear out these stripes. And then I'll go in there and do them at the correct angle. And to finish it up, I'll grab the eraser and clean up all the overhanging stripes. And I'm going to go through and color our whole character just like this, making sure each piece of clothing here is on its own layer. And I'm basically just giving it a colored wash with the abstract round, cutting it back with the eraser brush so it matches the sketch, and then adding in any patterns when needed. Now it's optional, but something I really like to do is add a kind of mixed media effect, and that's what I want to do for the hair. So I'm not going to use a watercolor brush for that. I'm going to go down to the drawing tab and use the little pine brush. And I'll use a dark brown color, almost black, and just do the hair kind of in a scratchy way. And I'm going to continue with this same little pine brush, and I'll do all the face details. And I'll also use it to do the shoes and also the hands. And once that's done, I'm going to turn off the sketch. I don't need it anymore, and I'm going to work on the shading. So the first thing I need to do is add some shading to the arm here to make it stand out. So I'm going to make sure that layer with the shirt on it is selected. Then I'm going to grab the selection tool, set to freehand, and I'm just going to select along one side of the arm. I'll reconnect it, and I'm just going to darken that portion, and that brings out a little bit of contrast with the arm. I'm also going to do it again on the front, and I'll also do one more shadow on this arm. And all these shadows have a pretty hard edge. You could leave it if you like that look, but you can also smooth it out with the water blender brush in the watercolor kit, this one right here. And this blender isn't affecting the stripes because those are still on a separate layer. Now with this illustration style, I like to keep the shading really simple. So the only other shadow I want to add is on the pants. So I'm just going to make sure the pants layer is selected. Again, I'll use the freehand selection tool. And I'm just going to add a darker portion there at the top. Now at this point, the character is done, or it could be done, but I want to show you an easy trick to give this guy a sort of forward moving momentum effect. So to do that, I'm going to first merge all the layers for our character together onto one. Then I'm going to grab the arrow tool, set it to distort. I'll zoom out here a bit. Now this green node can kind of tip him, so I'm going to tip him maybe 10 degrees in the direction that he's walking. Then I'll leave the arrow tool, select it again. It's still set to distort, and I'm just going to grab this bottom blue node, and I'm going to drag it forward until he looks balanced again. So visually, it's very balanced, but he has this kind of forward leaning effect that makes him look like he's walking. Now that this guy's finished, I'm going to move on and paint a bunch of different people. I don't want to make this video too long, so just for fun, I'll speed through the process for illustrating 2 characters as a kind of recap of everything we covered so far. After that's done, I'll show you all the characters I painted and how to make them into that final crowd illustration. Throughout this process, I'm using reference images of real people so I can make each character unique. I'm not super great at picking colors, but I definitely know a good combination when I see it. So in the end, I managed to paint 6 different characters, and if you open the layers panel, you can see each one is on its own layer. And I'm just going to go through and use the arrow tool to move them around and position them. I'm really just going by feeling and seeing how they fit together. And you'll also notice that where they overlap, there's a little bit of transparency, but don't worry about that for now because I'll show you how to fix that later on. And I think this arrangement turned out pretty good. I'm really happy with it. I don't see a lot of transparency issues. I would say don't mess with it unless it's becoming a problem, but I'll use this area here as an example because you can kind of see it. So basically, the green bag here is showing through the transparency of the green dress. So fixing that is pretty easy. I'm just going to make a blank layer that's underneath the woman with the green dress. And I'm going to make sure that layer here is selected. I'm going to use pure white and the Fineliner pen, just any kind of opaque pen brush. And I'm basically going to paint on white to sort of cover up or mask off that area that's transparent. So if I turn off the lady in green, you can see this little shape is there. It looks like I've erased through our guy, but of course it's not. It's just a layer with this little white shape on it. And that's how I'd handle the transparency issues, but fortunately I didn't have a lot of issues with this particular illustration. And just like that, our city crowd is all finished. You can definitely continue adding people to make this kind of scene longer or deeper, but this one feels really complete to me, so I think it's a good stopping point. If you found this video helpful and you think I've earned it, please give it a like. And if you'd like to paint more cute people, I think you'll love to watch one of these two videos next.